This is why local matters. So it's conversations on civic life and everyday leadership. So the series explores the people, roles, and decisions that shape everyday life in our communities. And each conversation asks not only what our local leaders do, but why it matters. From public service and education to belonging and leadership, these interviews highlight how ordinary people make an extraordinary difference through local engagement. So I have Cam Durant with me today, who is the current Rochester Town Administrator, and he is a former BPW member. Cam, do you want to? I don't know if there's more I should add on to that, so I'll let you introduce.
Sure. No, no problem. Yeah, no, that's me in a nutshell. I moved to Fairhaven 2017 and I was working in operations. I was working for companies like Lyft and Amazon. I didn't really have any governmental experience, but I loved debate in high school, met my best friend in high school. We went to college together, became my best man, and he was living and working in Fairhaven. I had just moved there, and he was talking to someone, and he learned that there was a vacancy on the Board of Public Works. And so I reached out to that person on the board, and then I reached out to Mr. Furtado, the BPW superintendent, who I now consider a friend and a mentor. And I learned that there was going to be a vacancy because there was someone on the board who was going to be having a child and it wasn't going to work out in his schedule anymore. And I said, I'm going to have my second child. I need to get out of the house. And so this is the perfect opportunity to use those debate skills from high school and those passions of mine. And so I jumped on the board and I loved that. It was my hobby. And then, as you know, just in kind of how we met, I said, let's crank it up a notch. So I ran twice for select board and I failed twice. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me, not being on the Fairhaven select board.
Yep.
I became the HR director. I love people. I was doing operations. I was managing people for my career. And someone in local government gave me a chance. And that has set up the trajectory to put me as a town administrator in Rochester. And every single day is so fun. When I go to meetings and I hear town administrators talk about the grind and how Facebook is killing them and it's making the job awful, I'm like, I don't know what anyone is talking about.
Do you think that might be a little bit of an age difference?
Yeah, no, I think it definitely is about the generation. And I think it also is about the town.
Yep.
I think this job is, personally incredible while it's incredible. And when you have a select board that you are simpatico with and you're in agreement, everything is great. When everyone is behaving how the system should behave, it's the best job ever. I've never experienced that,
Yeah.
other side of the coin, and I'm hoping I never do.
Yeah. I want to just dig in a little bit to what is a town administrator?
Throughout the Commonwealth, throughout the 351 communities, I think that um, title or definition means something different to every community, both in statute and just culturally. You can have a town manager title, but statutorily that individual does not have a ton of authority. You can have a town administrator with a tremendous amount of authority. I personally don't think of the job as having authority or not. I look at my role every day as being the arm of the select board. The select board sets the policy, at least in the town of Rochester. They are my managers. They are, collectively when they're together in an open meeting, they are my managers and they set the direction of the town. And it is my job to administrate out their policies into actions. And that's the fun part of my job because every single day is different. Every single day is a project. There's always something new that's going to happen. And so I love having a checklist and seeing what I can accomplish and how it can be accomplished. I find that my role is the public transparency officer, and not that the select board is not and ultimately, an incredibly transparent board.
Hmm.
They want everything to be on the up and up, and they want everyone to be aware. But I get to creatively determine, just beyond those legal requirements of open meeting law
What
postings,
extra?
how we can share that information out, so everyone is aware about that. And so, whether it's um, you know, telling that story or anecdote to explain what we're trying to achieve, and uh, to a common denominator, whether it's creating a Facebook page, whether it's doing a video, whether it's doing a mailing or a handout, knocking on doors or community event. That's the fun part of what I get to do.
You say that town managers have different authorities, or even town administrators in different towns within the state have different authorities. Something I think people might want to know about is hometown rule, which is the statute when you say that there are different roles for you all. You want to explain that a little bit?
The state of Massachusetts, compared to different states across the nation, is very state centric. The power truly lies at Beacon Hill, and the right of a town to even exist is controlled by Boston. And there are some ultimate mechanisms to try to revert authority and back to local government. So, there's obviously the charter process.
Yep.
What can a town do to have some sort of self-determination and role at home. You can always petition through town meeting, um, the state, for some sort of special consideration. Whether that is in Rochester, we are deciding to go beyond the age of retirement for public safety officials, because we have an excellent fire chief right now, and we're going through a process to build a new fire station, and we want to see his continued leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So we have that opportunity to go to town meeting, which is the truest form of democracy.
I love
Um,
a town meeting.
Perhaps, yeah, more than anything, perhaps not the most efficient form of government.
Mm-hmm.
Once or twice a year is when you get to determine how to move forward, and you can only move forward once or twice a year.
Yeah.
But it is truly where you're getting that important local input from your residents. And so we did that with a very simple example of, shall the fire chief be able to go and remain chief until the age of 70? And it just shows, though, how the control of Beacon Hill on a town, because we vote yes, but that has to go through the legislative process.
Yes.
One of the things we did was, there was no clear cut role of what a town administrator means in the town of Rochester. And we've had a town administrator since the late 90s, early 2000s. Before that, an executive secretary. So we kind of created, definitive roles for the select board, definitive roles for the town administrator. But again, while town meeting and the people approve that, it ultimately is up to the
State to approve.
legislator to give it that rubber stamp of approval. So the towns can do it, can only do so much. And we're seeing that right now with issues of housing,
Yep.
ADUs, MBTA community compliance. Every town feels differently
Yes.
about that, but there's only so much you can do. And look at how the town of Middleborough,
Yes.
pushed back.
Yep.
And, I appreciate that. I don't know that it was a win for Middleborough. I think it was more a win for open communications and kind of settling in the middle.
Yep.
That's really important. That's great. I think it says a lot about Middleborough as a community. Yep. To challenge the state, but be accurate, and to having some sort of consensus.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
Yep.
the state is really where we're getting our marching orders from.
I'm on the planning board in Fairhaven, as you know, so we're big on home rule. So we'll talk about our local statute, our bylaws, and where they can, they can't conflict with the state. They can be stricter than the state, but not less strict, which are really cool ways for a municipality to control. So, like, I, as a resident of Fairhaven, get to have this really large impact on how growth can happen. You've talked about what you do as a town administrator. I think something that would be a surprise that why does your role matter that people may not realize, and then that same type of like, what does the BPW actually do? What are the kind of surprising things that affect people's lives, whether it's I don't know how much fiscally the BPW will affect, but in my opinion, the BPW is this. I mean, they affect every single resident of the town, yet they're not really maybe respected in that way.
When I was a BPW commissioner, I always felt tremendous pride because I always felt like we were the do something board. Whenever a town department didn't know how to get it done, the BPW came to figure it out with some sort of support or resource. But it is the most basic service, right? Water, utilities. When you turn that faucet on, you expect water to be there. You expect it to be clean. You expect it to be safe, consistent, flowing. And really, the only time the BPW ever has any thought is when they get that water bill. And that's super painful.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not everyone, unfortunately, and we always hear that all the time. Why should my taxes go to support the schools? I don't have any children in the schools. And I think I understand the financial frustration,
Yeah.
because everyone feels like their wallet's being pinched, but
Yes.
you're part of a society.
We
You
are
went
part
to
of a shared
school.
community. Yep.
Yep. You're paying that forward. Everyone drinks the water. And so that was, my mentor in Fairhaven, Vinny Furtado's line. Not everyone has a kid in the school, but everyone drinks that water. And so public infrastructure is super important. It is a production to make sure that your garbage is picked up. And as we see now, it's a really expensive part of that scenario. But basic governmental services are something that people don't take advantage, excuse me, they don't realize all the work that comes into it. They don't appreciate it. They take advantage of it.
Yep.
They deserve it, but they don't realize the amount of work and effort it takes and the structure.
Yeah.
I had some recent meetings in town where people were making donations to the town, very, very generous. They wanted to build some infrastructure in our parks, and they put some stipulations on the donation.
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't unreasonable stipulations, but they were illegal stipulations. The town has certain state mandates with which we must follow with our finances. We cannot spend money, whether we have it or not, that is not appropriated by the people at town meeting.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, someone wanted to give me a very generous donation, but they would only give it to me once I built what they wanted built. And once they looked at it and they approved it, they would say, okay, here you go. Here's the money. Thank you so much. And I had to say, we can't do that. Of course you can. You have millions of dollars in the bank. Well, it's not appropriated that way.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. In my business, I can do this and move this. And I said, exactly. You are a part of a business. You are a part of a very successful business. I am sure that you are a more successful and smarter manager at your business than I am 1 year in as a town administrator.
Yeah.
But it's apples and oranges.
Yeah, well, the town, even if it has millions of dollars in the bank, the goal of the town is not actually, like, you're not making a profit. It is not like running a business. It's not like running your own bank account. There are all sorts of approvals. There are certain accounts you can only use for certain things, and that causes a lot of confusion. So I super look forward to a large conversation.
I know that you are certainly aware, just being a active participant in Fairhaven government and your husband being on the finance committee in Fairhaven, that the smartest person in the world that is not involved in municipal government cannot fathom the fact that you have An operating budget supported by continuous revenue, property tax, excise tax, new, or local receipts, state aid, and then you could have $15 million in your savings account, in your stabilization account. And when you say, I cannot afford that to a resident or to a group in town, and they go and they say, well, you have $15 million in that stabilization account, you're lying. You're wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You have to say, well, that is not going to support the operations forever.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself at a deficit. If
Yep.
you had no job and you made $0 a year and you had $200,000 in your savings account, you could only pay those bills in your personal home mortgage for so long. It doesn't matter what you have in the savings account. It doesn't matter what you have in the stabilization account. It doesn't matter how rich you are on paper. If that revenue is not coming in to support your operations, you will eventually run into a deficit. And that is the toughest conversation to have with the smartest people.
Yes.
It is so confusing.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely it's a larger than one episode conversation, I think.